Chapter 26. Trying to Tame the Wind. Naruto looked at the wind figure. He wasn't going to refer to him as Jiraiya, he was going to refer to him as Wind. Wind was in a stance that was ready for either an offensive or defensive strike. Naruto charged, wanting to see how Wind was going to react. The wind blocked the punch easily, not even moving. Naruto compared it to when he was going full cylinders as Tayayu was just starting to get her power. When he jumped back, the wind smirked. Is that the best that you can do, Naruto Uzumaki? Naruto just stared at the wind. He wasn't going to let the element get under his skin. That would only lead to getting an ass-whopping in the fight. The wind then went on the offensive as he charged at Naruto with incredible speed. Naruto had never seen something so fast and was barely able to knock the hit into his arm instead of his chest. Regardless of where he connected, Naruto still went skidding back, putting his hand to the ground and channeling chakra into it to slow down. Naruto looked up at the wind, who was still smiling confidently. I will admit, you're tougher than most. Usually whoever tries to become affiliated with me takes one hit and is out. You were even fast enough to hit my punch away from your chest. Naruto stood up. Like I said, I have someone I have to protect, and that is something that I will do no matter what. I will come here every day to fight you if that is what it takes, but eventually I will make the affiliation contract and I will have the power I need to ensure her protection. The wind looked at him with a more serious look. Your reason is probably the most noble one that I have ever heard from people trying to take control of me, but still, I won't be something you can control. You won't make it through another punch. The blonde-haired shinobi stood there as the wind came charging at him. As the wind drew back his hand to deliver the punch, Naruto did nothing. The wind thrusted forward, then as his hand went to connect to Naruto's cheek, he disappeared, reappearing to the side of the wind with crimson eyes. He delivered a hard kick to the wind's cheek, making him go flying away. As the element tumbled on the ground, he put his hands out and a blast of wind came out of each hand to stop him. The wind looked up at Naruto's crimson eyes, relying on the Kyuubi. Naruto just stared at the wind. I need every asset that I have to beat you, so I will use everything that I have at my disposal. Obviously you are strong, so I need to use something that more or less gets us balanced in power. The wind smirked as he charged at the blonde-haired man. With the enhancement from his Kyuubi chakra, his eyes were able to follow him. As the wind thrusted forward the punch, Naruto put out his hand and caught it, this time not skidding backwards, making him smile. Naruto threw his other hand into the wind's stomach with a hard punch. As the wind flew in the air, Naruto appeared behind him and brought his leg crashing down onto the wind's back, making the element go shooting towards the ground. As it got towards the ground, he put his feet down towards the ground, then he slowed down until he was floating in the air. Naruto landed on the ground and looked up at the wind as he floated in the air. The wind just looked down at Naruto. That was impressive, Naruto Uzumaki. You were able to match my power, and as your confidence went up, so did your power. Naruto just stood there staring at the wind as he looked at him. The wind popped his back as he stared right back. I say that your taijutsu is more than acceptable. That already puts you in a better position than anyone else who has ever tried to take control of me. Now, let's more on to ninjutsu type attacks. Since I can't exactly do ninjutsu, my attacks will be like them but not ninjutsu exactly. Naruto nodded as he readjusted. Then the gust of wind came through and the bottom of the element started to disappear. His body disappeared right up to the top of his hair until he reappeared behind Naruto with wind surrounding his fist. He went to deliver the punch to Naruto's spine, but Naruto back flipped over the wind and flew through hand signs, fire style, fireball justu. Naruto blew out a stream of fire at the wind, but the wind just threw up his hand, capturing his attack in a sphere of wind, then enclosing it until it was gone. The wind smiled at him. Your fire attacks will do nothing to me. I can just catch them all in vacuums and make it so they disappear. The blonde-haired shinobi just stared at the element before holding out his hand, forming a Rasengan. Naruto just looked at the wind as he stared at the Rasengan. Ah, your precious Rasengan. That may actually be a little painful if it connects. That was when Naruto flashed, appearing behind the element before trying to connect with the jutsu. The wind smiled, then Naruto's attack went right through the element's body as well as Naruto. His attack hit the ground and a small crater formed, then he rolled to look back at the wind. The element just held his smile as he looked at the blonde-haired man that was trying to make the contract with him. The wind had to admit that he was having fun with this. He usually hated when this happened, but this man was proving to be a little entertaining. Naruto stood up as he did his sign to have shadow clones appear all around them. The wind looked around then smiled. Look at all the Narutos, have you used this jutsu with your woman yet? I bet she would have fun with a multitude of you. Naruto ignored the question and thought, he hadn't used this with Tayayu privately, but the wind probably was right about her liking it. Naruto shook his head, he had to stay focused. With that all the clones formed Rasengans, making the wind's eyebrow rise. To think you have so much chakra you can give to each of the clones to make a Rasengan. Of course, the Kyuubi does have near limitless chakra, doesn't it? Naruto's clones all charged as he slipped into the crowd of them. He would wait for the moment to strike. If he was right, then the wind would make it so that all the attacks passed through him again. He would solidify after that. That moment would be when Naruto would land his blow. All of the clones' Rasengans passed through the wind, some connecting to the ground, some connecting to the other clones. As the wind smiled, Naruto jumped into the air from behind the wind, using the commotion to his advantage. He pulled back, and just as he was about to connect, he passed through the wind again. Clever boy, not clever enough though. You think that you can move around without the wind knowing? I am everywhere at all times. I knew what you were doing the entire time. I just wanted to see how it would work out for you. Naruto sighed. This is irritating. The wind just smiled, then charged, throwing a punch at Naruto. As his hand went forward, he went for the block, but the wind made it so his hand passed through the block and resolidified afterwards. The punch sent Naruto flying backwards. Had he not been using his Kyuubi chakra, then the punch would have broken his jaw, or much worse. Naruto spat out the blood, making the wind look at him. No one has ever survived that hit before. Naruto adjusted his jaw as he got ready to keep fighting, making the wind look at him. Does she really mean this much to you? That you are willing to die in here for a small chance to have my power? The blonde-haired man stared at the wind. She means everything to me. I will not die here because I know they would still target her. I have to protect her. I already put her in harm's way by being with her. I offered her the way out of leaving me, but she is stubborn. It is one of the reasons that I love her so much. I have to be able to protect her from the harm I put her in. If that means taking 100 more hits from you, then so be it. The wind looked at him. I must admit, Naruto Uzumaki, you do intrigue me. Naruto looked at the wind as they stood there for a moment. I will agree to our contract, but only under the conditions that we battle at least once a month. I think that it will be most entertaining for me. Do you agree to my condition? The blonde-haired man just looked at the element with a questioning look, wanting to make sure that it wasn't some kind of trick. When he felt that it wasn't, though, he nodded his head in agreement, and then the figure that looked like Jiraiya snapped his fingers and Naruto's eyes shot open in the real world. His eyes fell on Tayayu, who was looking at him with extreme lust in her eyes. Hey there, Naruto-kun, did you finish yet so that we can go home? Like now? Naruto smiled as he looked at her, then went to stand up and started to float a little. Whoa. The red-headed woman looked at him as he floated in the air. That's new. The blonde-haired man smiled at her as he grabbed her hand and pulled her up to him so that they were both floating. She looked at the ground, then at him. Are we seriously just floating in the air? Does that mean that you were successful? Naruto smiled at her, then nodded his head as he kissed her quickly. I did win to Yuya-chan. I just have to go and fight him at least once a month. With that condition, I am now the first shinobi to ever make a contract with the wind. This is apparently one of the things that I can do, which makes sense seeing as he did it while we were fighting. The red-headed goddess just looked at him. You keep saying, he. I didn't think that elements have a gender. He smiled at her. The wind chose a form that I was familiar with. He picked Jiraiya-sensei, then you. I picked to fight Jiraiya in the end though. I guess I was getting used to referring to the wind as a he. When Tayayu adjusted to have her arms wrapped around his neck as they floated in the air. Naruto smiled at her as she looked at his blue fox eyes. She thought that his eyes were actually a little lighter, a shade of blue. She smiled back at him. Can we go home now so that we can fuck? Naruto pulled her closer to him. You know, the wind gave me a very interesting idea about how to please you in the bedroom. The red-headed woman just rose an eyebrow at her boyfriend. What did you and your friend discuss then, huh? Naruto smiled at her. There was some talk about using shadow clones in the bedroom. I can't believe that my sex-crazed girlfriend never thought of it before. She smirked. No, I had just never thought that you would have agreed to the idea. He smiled at her. Well, I know that if I tell you no, it doesn't really work out for me. Usually you hit me until I agree and you work me even harder. Now shall I take you home or would you like to go somewhere else? She smirked. What the hell do you think the answer to that question is? Naruto smirked. I think that you want to take a nice flight around Konohagakure. She had a growling sound coming from her. I swear to Kami shithead, I will fuck your brains out over Konohagakure if you don't take us home right now. He just shook his head. Yes dear. He flew them home, entering through the window of the apartment. That was a smart idea since she was basically stripping his clothes as he opened the window. He knew that she was going to be like this, it was obvious by the way that she had been looking at him. He proceeded to give her everything that she wanted. She was also very adamant about the fact that he had to use shadow clones. When they finished, he made her dinner as she took a quick nap. As she slept and he had the food cooking, he was also getting used to the wind powers that he now had. When Tayayu woke up from the smell of food, she came out to see Naruto having objects float above his hand. She looked at him. What are you doing, Naruto-kun? He looked at her. Getting used to my new abilities is all, Tayayu-chan. Your dinner is ready. She nodded her head, then made them both some food before sitting down with him at the table. When they were finished, she persuaded him into going back to bed, wanting to enjoy what they did to each other. To be continued.